What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do Snow Stripper style witch house. Going along with this video, you can get this template at the top of the description on my website, so definitely check that out and let's dive in. All right, so first thing we got up here is our drums. So yeah, they're really simple. I noticed these guys aren't using like a whole ton of layers. It's really just like really 3 or 4 that are really big like this. So in this case, we have this big fat 909 kick. So I got this one here. You can hear there's like those double kicks right in the middle of every 4 bars. And then what we're doing is we're actually using the filter drive to kind of bring this up. Right, that's how it started. We got our 909 hi-hat. Really simple, but I shortened this a little bit to fit the groove, and then also just this big 909 clap. See, a lot of 909 drums, I mean, these guys really bring it back and put like the house in the witch house, right? So 909, 808 sounds, it's really not as complex as like a lot of other witch house drums can be. So as far as the group here, what we're doing is we're grouping them together and then putting it through a little bit of processing to kind of glue it and give it that sound. If you want to sound like witch house, a lot of it is group processing and things getting kind of like squashed and distorted together. So here's the drums without it. With it. So you can see how important this is, right? So we actually just start with a little bit of reverb. It's a tiny bit. You really don't want like almost any reverb on your kick usually, but we can break that rule a little bit here. And the key is I just made it really short. So it just kind of puts the drums in a room and that helps to give them a bit more texture. And then the saturator, which is just on medium curve. I've done the soft clip, so we're not gonna like go into like, you know, too crunchy of territory. And then I'm also blending it a little bit. It can be good to really glue those drums together. And also that sound you hear in a lot of these tracks where it's like kind of the kick and clap getting squashed together. That's how they do it. It's those going into saturation. Right, and then the high end clipping against the low end. Then we have our bass line. Right, so this is a really simple bass line, but you can hear it grooves well with the drums. With that sort of like 8th note groove, and there's not really a whole lot, I mean, there's no 16th notes in the drums that can kind of get in the way of this, so that groove works really well. As far as the notes go, we're in F sharp minor, so we're going root, 3rd, 6th, and then 3rd again. It's really simple. It's just kind of like holding the whole track down with the chord progression. For the sound on this one, it's made with wavetable. I've got a sub oscillator, which is at the same octave as everything else. Plus, I've got these 2 oscillators detuned a little bit. You can see a saw wave, and then I have this Tuvan wavetable here. I've got a low pass filter, which has a lot of drive. Also, that's pretty important for this and the kick, as you can see. Like if I turn that off, you know, it's a lot cleaner and kind of, this really gives it the texture. We got a bit of classic unison as well, right? You can see the voices are all the way up, but the amount is very low. And that's really it. You don't want to overprocess this. There's a little bit on the group that I'll get to, but that's really the bass. Then we move down to this little piano. So what's going on here is kind of like 3 melodies, right? We have this one where it's going 5th, 6th, and then back down to the 5th, right? So you get like a... Then there's this one, which is just a steady, right? So you're getting like those 2 already talking to each other. And then you have this one up top as well, which is doing its own thing. Right, so these kind of chords can seem really stressful and kind of like hard to figure out when you don't really get it, but all that's happening is there's just 3 melodies, right? As far as this melody up here, it's just 3, 4, 3, 5, 9, like pretty simple. For the sound on this one, I've taken this piano here, I'll play it for you. which has like a really nice texture to it, right? It almost sounds like an organ or something. It's not quite like such a piano sound. And then actually I brought the start time forward, and then I used the simpler here to shape it. Right, like I gave it a little bit of release, but I made it like this kind of pluck. A little bit of short reverb, and then we're also using a bit of saturator. There's not much though. So I just brought the dry wet down to 13%. Then we have this pad. So it's following the same progression that I showed you on the bass. However, this has full chords. So now we had a fifth and a root. And I like spreading these out where you have like the third up an octave and then the root at the bottom and the fifth in the middle, because you get these really epic and huge sounding chords like this, which works really well too, because this is honestly adding a lot of like fullness to the track. If I turn it off, see how when I turn it on, it really is like a lot of that energy. So having those thirds up high works really well. So these are just the same chords I showed you on that, but just root, fifth, and then third. For the sound on this one, this is wavetable. It's this saw wave and then this other saw wave, which is an octave up from the first one. Ton of noise unison. And I also use this hybrid reverb with this like marbles texture here to try to give it, you know, more flavor. Here's without it. With it, you can hear it just kind of gives it something a little bit different that's not just that same kind of super soft. We have a high pass filter, and then we move down to this little sort of like screech lead. Right, this is playing a really simple melody. It's just F sharp on the upbeats and then those thirds at the end there. Really not too complicated. It's just a good rhythmic kind of melody. So then we've got just on this, it's a saw wave with a ton of unison, quite a bit of reverb, and then we're also distorting it. Here's without that. With it, it's subtle. I think it's important there because it just gives it a lot more flavor. High pass filter. I was waiting for that one. And then we have this last lead. See, I was trying to recreate the lead from that song they did with Uzi, but just like kind of in this key, right? Because that track isn't the same key as this. What this is, it's playing this really simple melody. Which on its own is very basic. You notice the note lengths are a very particular length though. And the reason for that is because I have this arpeggiator here. So if I turn this off, it's a really basic synth, right? It's just a saw wave, a little bit of reverb, a high pass filter. But what we've done is we put this arpeggiator here, and then we have just enough release on the synth, and the notes are just long enough to where this goes up and down the octaves. And then it just ends. So you see, if I hold this out longer, it's doing like that. But then if we just make it like, see, if you just play the note long enough, you get that kind of cool thing. So that's basically what that meat is doing. It's playing with this arpeggiator, and then it's these settings. You have it really fast rate, up, down, so it just goes up and then back down the scale. 3 octaves where it's just an octave between them. Really simple, and then you get that kind of a lead. So then we got all the synths in a group, and the reason for this is because they need to kind of be processed together to kind of glue them and give them that sort of like warm feel. Here's with no group processing. It's subtle, but it just adds to that overall texture and atmosphere in the track. So what we're doing here is it's just a saturator on medium curve. Which really kind of squashes these, but in a good way. And then we're sidechaining this to the kick. The last thing down here are going to be the vocals. We have 2. I have this one. Right, just like this little melodic hit with a ton of reverb and sidechain and high pass. The vocals really aren't too crazy. It's more about just like what they're doing. I think that's the key. Is like in this case, these simple little melodic stabs, like you hear a lot in the Snow Troopers tracks, or like this one too. Just like these old kind of vocal stabs. Right, and then just adding a ton of delay and sidechain and high pass to make it fit in the track. So that's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said, you can get this full template at the top of the description on my website, so definitely make sure to grab that. Thanks for the support, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.